I realized I was running around this morning without my glasses on. I can't remember why I took them off. And it turns out I can see pretty good without them. You're still there. And, it's funny when I go, I can kind of tell when it's time to get my prescription updated. I actually have 3 in here. 3 different points of view in here. And you can tell for me when it's time to get them updated, because when you first get them, you're looking at your computer like this, and when you're ready to make a change, you're looking at your computer like this, out of the lower region. So it's time. And I can't remember the last time I had an eye exam where they said, nope, 2020, you're good to go, get out there. Woohoo! So the first time that I walked in and came out with a pair of glasses, I just went, wow! I had no idea what I was missing. Do you remember that day where suddenly there were leaves on the tree and blades of grass that you were walking on? Our vision is so precious. Do you agree? We very easily take it for granted. But when you think about the beauty that we see with our eyes and the power that it gives us to get around, give us the independence to get around on our own, it's amazing, amazing. And that power of our physical vision that we have with our eyes, no matter how perfect it is, it can actually get in our way sometimes. And I know you probably don't think this when you're looking through your eyes, but we've learned that looks can be deceiving. We've used our eyes to judge the book by its cover. How often we do that, based on what we're seeing with our physical eyes. So it's kind of a handicap sometimes if we're not paying attention to what we're seeing and then what's going into the brain. That's really the important piece of this. We have said throughout our life, I will believe it when I see it, right? But if you're sitting here in this chair, if you're listening online today, my hunch is you've heard it the opposite as well, that I will see it when I believe it. The operative word is believe. And I want you to consider that word believe is actually a power greater than our power of vision, because it's our belief vision that has the power to create our life. We've been using it throughout our entire life. That's why I keep referring back to Jesus' statement to let it be done to you as you believe. That was the one statement that explains Unity's third principle, that we create our life experience through our thoughts and our feelings and beliefs. So I wanted to draw you into Unity's theme for the year. Unity.org, our world headquarters, chooses a new theme to focus on, and every month they put on their website a new article about the topic, a new meditation, maybe a video to watch. So I encourage you to check that out, unity.org, because this year their theme is 2020 Perfect Vision. And we're not all supposed to go to the eye doctor and get an update, not that kind of perfect vision. We're talking about perfect vision that sees through spirit, seeing through the lens of spirit. And for the next few weeks anyway, I want to talk about this too. I want to talk about what our spiritual vision is, why it's important, how we get it, why is it more powerful than our physical vision. I want to use what Jesus's sayings were around this, because his entire life, at least that was written about, is describing spiritual vision. And he was the master of spiritual vision. There was some scripture in the book of John, chapter 4, where he says, don't you have a saying that it's still 4 months until the harvest? I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. Think of that, that you're looking out in December at that scraggly bunch of weeds laying there and trying to imagine that those are ready for harvest. It was a little bit confusing for his followers. What did he mean by that? He said, when he came across a group of people who were moaning and crying and wailing and mourning over the death of a little girl, he said, go away. The girl's not dead but asleep. And I'm sure they thought, don't you have eyes? Yes. He did have eyes. From the book of John, there's a story where his disciples are trying to get him to eat. It's been a while since they've seen food pass his lips. Rabbi, eat something. But he said to them, I have food to eat that you know nothing about. There was a way of experiencing nourishment through his spiritual vision that allowed him to sustain himself. And all of those statements are examples of the one that he made that I thought was so important. Don't judge by appearance, but judge with right judgment. I'm sure that the disciples struggled regularly with what he taught them. And they were probably wondering, is he mad or is he just a mystic? You know, is he speaking in code? Does he want us to understand? I promise you, he wanted them to understand. There's even a very telling story from Matthew. He said, a gentleman brought his son to Jesus for healing. And the gentleman said, I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him. Jesus, you unbelieving and perverse generation. I'm not kidding. It's in Matthew 17. Look it up. Jesus replied, how long shall I stay with you people? How long shall I put up with you morons? Editing. Bring the boy here to me. Jesus rebuked the spirit, and it came out of the boy, and he was healed at that moment. And then the disciples came to Jesus in private and asked, why couldn't we drive it out? He replied, because you have so little faith. Truly, I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. This was the foundation of Jesus' miracles, was his spiritual vision, his ability to see a power, a substance, a presence greater than what we can see with our physical eyes. He was able to see in such a way that a few fish and loaves fed thousands. He was able to come up to a man who'd been laying lame for 40 years and say, stand up, take your mat, walk. And he did. He was able to stand in front of the tomb of Lazarus after having been dead for 3 days and say, come out, brother, come out. That is what spiritual vision is. As a matter of fact, there's 4 books written about Jesus' life: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Mark is the earliest, was written roughly 60 years CE, also known as the old AD. And so I assume that was closest to Jesus' life. It might be closest to what really was said. And one of the, whoever wrote Mark, by the way, it wasn't Mark, but whoever wrote Mark said that the first words out of his mouth were from chapter 1, verse 15. The time is now. God's kingdom is here. Change your life and believe the message. He also said in that book, Mark, he said, truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see that the kingdom of God has come with power. Now, in their language, when he was saying that the kingdom is here, take a look. They thought he was crazy because for them, that meant that Jesus was on the throne, or better yet, they didn't even know he was the Messiah yet. The Messiah was on the throne, the Romans were ousted, and now the Jews had control. That's what they thought he was talking about, and they could obviously tell, Romans everywhere, he's nuts. But that wasn't the kingdom that he was talking about. He was speaking of a kingdom that promised life without limits. It promised supply in the midst of poverty. It promised life and renewal in the midst of sickness, and even life in the face of death. And you know, even when his disciples would watch him perform these miracles with their eyes, they still did not get it. There's a story in the book of Mark again, hearing his disciples talking about, you know, he's telling this little parable about bread. He must be worried that we're not going to have enough bread. And Jesus, aware of their discussion, said, why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see and ears but fail to hear? Don't you remember when I broke the 7 loaves for the 4,000? How many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? They answered, 7. He said to them, do you still not understand? And I'm sure they're going, understand what? What did he mean by right judgment? If I'm not supposed to, tell him what I'm seeing with my eyes. Even witnessing miracles was not enough for them. And it won't be for you. I can tell you, I have seen miracles and I have seen people witness miracles. And it might change their life for a moment. But because their faith was in something they didn't understand, it didn't last long. So today we're talking about a spiritual vision that's based on not the outside, but our relationship to the Spirit. And as the Spirit, Paul got this. The Apostle Paul wrote to Hebrews and said that what is seen is made from things that are not visible. If you could just start with that premise and then realize that the not visible is Spirit, and Spirit is infinite, and Spirit is our goodness and our life and our peace and our love, and it's always available, you could go home now. If you could get that what is seen, whatever I need, whatever I want to create in my life is going to come out of the invisible. Most of us put our faith in what we have experience in. So instead of looking to Spirit, when we need money, we put our faith in our employer until our employer goes away for some reason. And that means that it's temporary and it's not going to be fulfilling long term. That's not what Spirit intended for us. That's not a representation of the kingdom. When you're looking for love, it's really easy to put your faith in your partner for that until they have a bad day and tell you what they really think of you. Or go away altogether. Most of us put our faith in, when we're sick, we go to the doctor, we get the bottle of medicine. This is what I'm putting my faith in. And the medicine only lasts so long, or side effects are even worse. We put our faith in the degree that we put on the wall to get us a job, but then it turns out that we got the wrong degree, or everybody else has a degree too, and now I'm competing against them. Most of us are putting our faith in war to create peace. And if by some reason we do come to some kind of a peace accord through war, it's not long before we got another problem and another war. So that's not it. Those who struggle with addiction know what it's like to put their faith in a glass or a bottle of alcohol and then find out that it only lasts so long for their comfort. So what I'm talking about today is putting our faith in something that can't be seen with our eyes, but can be seen within. We have to have X-ray vision like Superman and be able to see past our appearances. This is the power of faith that Jesus was trying to get people to own. And there was only one thing he taught to put your faith in, that was God. So part of the idea is getting really clear on how you see God. We teach in Unity that it's not that being who sits on a throne and giveth and taketh away, that punish, that loves. One day you're going to heaven and the next day you're going to hell. Not that kind of God. We want to put our faith in a presence that fills heaven and earth, as the Psalms say. My faith is in the presence of God, that which is unlimited in nature, that which is always giving of itself, that which has everything that I need. And when you watch how Jesus lived his life, he was demonstrating that presence all the time. He was able to take lack and turn it into supply because of his faith. He had a quality of spirit within him that knew sickness could be transformed into health. He knew that judgment could be transformed into forgiveness, that conflict could be transformed into peace. He knew that when we're struggling to know what to do, even the craziest person that he ran into, he could see and call forth the divine quality of clarity. That video that we watched here this morning, where it seemed to the boys that this boy was insane, when in truth, the only insanity amongst them was those who were looking with their eyes at circumstances and making a decision at that point. But we watched God expressing as children, demonstrating a divine quality. And that's what Jesus did. Not only did he see these qualities, he demonstrated them, he lived them, he became them. That's what I'm asking our faith to do, is to understand what's possible and then be it, to look past appearance into what's possible with our inner eye. Here's how Charles Fillmore described faith. Faith is a force that draws to us our heart's desire right out of the invisible spiritual substance. It's a deep inner knowing that what we seek is already ours for the taking. So this is about understanding God as a presence. We use a lot of words to describe God. One of them is substance. Another is spirit, another is presence, another is energy, another is light. They all basically mean the same thing to me. It fills everything. God fills everything. Start with that premise. Put your faith in that. That you feel you have a need? Guess what? Your need is literally happening inside your supply. Every time you start to think shortage, you go, wait. My faith reminds me that I'm inside my supply, that the invisible spiritual substance of God is what became this chair. You look it up under a microscope and you'll see a whole bunch of space. Your body, same way, a whole bunch of space. We say that space is the omnipresence and the omnipotence of God. And it's waiting for our attention to become something. But know that it's always there. It's always giving of itself. Jesus said it's God's good pleasure to give you that kingdom of heaven. It's always with us. And if you're not sure what it is that is of your pleasure, then just turn within again, connect with spirit, and realize my mind is inside the mind of God. My question is inside the knowing, the wisdom, the intelligence of God. So I'm just going to rest and look at God. Wait on God, be still, and know I am God until that idea comes. So now we've got the supply, the substance, the energy that's going to become the tangible thing. We've got an idea of what it is that we want this substance to become. And now we just activate the law through our attention on that idea. That third quality of God is that activity that is constantly making matches with things that look alike. And so when your idea is about that which is good for you, you become a magnet for that which is good for you. That's also spirit working as law. Jesus described it in Mark in chapter 11, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. He said, or he didn't say, the writer of Job said, you will decide on a matter and it will be established for you. That's the law at work. You've got the substance everywhere present. You've got the goodness of God giving of itself to you. You've got a realm of infinite ideas. And now it's about putting your attention on that idea, causing the law to activate. Now keep in mind, you're using that process all the time. Sometimes you get what you want. Sometimes you get what you don't want. But you are the deciding factor. You know, sometimes we forget about the spiritual vision. We go in with the human vision and we create the things that look like limitation because that's what we believe. That's what we think the world is. We're still using spiritual energy. We're still using ideas. They're just not divine. They're human ideas. Human ideas that say, you know, there's only so much money, and so I don't get enough. Or my body can only be healthy until I reach a certain age. Or I have to be perfect and beautiful, powerful in order to be loved. Or I have to have 8 degrees on the wall in order to make people trust me and believe in what I'm telling them. That is using the same process. The only difference is which idea are you giving your attention to. So here's the other piece of this that I want to finish with today, and this is that you match up your spiritual vision of faith with your power of choice, your ability to choose what it is that you want to look at. what you want to focus on. How does, when you're getting ready to create something, or when you're faced, better yet, when you're faced with the shortage, a great question to ask is, how does God mind see this? Short, limited, not enough, sick, unloved? No, we know, our heart knows how Spirit sees this. And so this is about choosing to look at things the way that Spirit looks at things. And then it's also about choosing the words that you use to talk about this problem. You can call it a problem, you can call it an opportunity to express infinite potential. How many times have we said, when we're dealing with, trying to get something that everybody else is trying to get, that is too competitive out there. I don't have a chance at this. Up here on the screen, we've got some options here. We have our power of choice to switch from it's too competitive to there's enough for all. We have the ability to switch from I don't know how, I just can't figure this out, to I can learn. My mind is inside the mind of God. I have the ability to learn. We can switch from I tried this before and it didn't work out so well to I'll look for a new way. With my spiritual vision, I will see a new possibility. You can switch from it's impossible, nobody can get this done, to it's already done in the mind of God, and I'm within the mind. I have access to that solution. Well, my experience has been, no. Spirit is the solution. I want you to consider that spiritual vision is always and only dependent on God. That's the way that Jesus put it. What do I have faith in? One thing, God. So we're talking about no longer caring what the world says about your issue. No longer caring what your family thinks you should do. This is simply between me and Spirit. I was talking to somebody who wanted to try something new, but they had a family member who was against it. And that's tough when you live with them, right? You want to go this direction, they want to go that direction. I said, it's always and only between you and God. When you connect with God, when you're feeling that pull that says, yes, 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 and somebody else goes, no, 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 then you just go back to, wait. My conversation here is just between God and I. I look to my only source for this. It's Spirit's job to handle that over here. It's Spirit's job. And I promise you, it will always, when you treat it that way, it will always be a win-win. Spirit will never give you something that will deprive someone else. It's not possible. So instead of caring what the news says or where the stock market is or what your employer is giving away today or not, it doesn't matter who says they're the final authority. There's really only one source. And your spiritual vision will remind you of that, to look past appearance and internally where your good comes from. I love what Esther Hicks said. Never face reality unless reality is just the way you want it to be. And you might think that's putting your head in the sand, but what it's really doing is putting your head inward into truth, into your true source of good, into that which has the power to create all things. To look away from what your eyes are telling you to your inner vision. Up here on the screen, there's an affirmation. The only power active in this situation is Spirit. Let's say that together. The only power active in this situation is Spirit. That's yours to remember when you feel like you've hit a wall and someone else is trying to take your good from you. They have no meaning. They have no power. There's only Spirit active in this situation. And I can either look at it with my trifocals, or I can look at it with the single pure vision of God. Be still and know I